gorgeous, young, beautiful African-American woman. And I know that's a lot, and that may make me sound pretty narcissistic, but it's true. I'm all of those things. But, I mean, to bring me here today had a lot to do with my community, my church. My parents both come from faith backgrounds. My dad's a Quaker, my mom's a Roman Catholic. And in the household, we never really looked at denominations as much as we just valued the love of God. And so that love really kind of engaged us in certain communities that also represented that. And so I found myself in the United Methodist Church that was a place of representing the love of God. And from youth group and having people, I can remember my first youth director, Jason Morris, who pulled me aside when I was 12, wasn't really like the youth group age, and said, Laura, I think you're going to be a leader someday. And I'll never forget, I was just like, Jason, you're just making me do something that I really don't want to do. But he led me into acknowledging that I am called to be a leader, specifically in the capacity of the church. And I'll never kind of forget the opportunities and blessings that he just placed into my life by just walking with me and loving me, ultimately loving me in condition, because I was kind of a crazy 12-year-old. But he also let us shoot Taco Bell burritos at squirrels. So, but I mean, just being engaged in the level of a church, and having parents and my own father and my older brother just encourage me of like, Laura, I really see a calling upon leadership and church leadership and justice in your life. And then moving to Tennessee, and then also meeting Chris Consolitz, who opened my eyes to not just the church on a local level, but the church on a global level. And so all the way from working with events like Young People in Missions that is connected to the southeastern jurisdiction of the United Methodist Church, and connecting with 7 or 8 or 9 different churches in the southeast and talking to them about missions and justice and service, and then again recognizing this theme of God's love that does surpass all barriers, surpasses all differences. So it's ultimately been the root of what my parents taught me at a young age, is that love really knows no denomination. It knows no boundary. Love is just always a presence of being embraced, a presence of bringing who you are to the table. I don't know. And I think that's the same thing that kind of brought me here to United Methodist Volunteers and Missions, is acknowledging the mission statement here, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but to represent Christ's love and action, Christian love and action, and so just the root of that being in the mission and purpose of this organization has really guided my opportunities with Church Without Walls and urban ministry, and with Young People in Missions and Global Young People's Convocation, and seeing how Christ's love has been a part of every single part of my experiences this summer. And the funny thing is, like, it hasn't been perfect. It hasn't been easy. It's been a challenge, but to see that in loving, truly loving people, it's going to be difficult. There's going to be a hardship with it. So it's a long-winded answer. Hopefully this doesn't come across cliche, but I feel like justice is love. Cornel West has this quote that justice is what love looks like in public. And I feel like when we were at Young People in Missions, that is what justice truly boiled down to. It was loving one another in the way that we knew that we could, right? Like loving one another in maybe doing small service projects, or how the design team loved the community that they were serving, was putting on this event and playing games and having open mic night and doing all of these just weird things, but at the end of the day they did this because they loved the experience, they loved the community, and they wanted they wanted to share that opportunity with everyone. And so when I think about justice, I immediately connect it to love. And you can't really separate the two. And that's kind of what I experienced this summer. So I guess that's how I define it. This summer, working with RG has been, it's hard to put it into words when you meet someone that justice is no longer a theory, but it's something that you put into practice. You're not just putting it into practice in just, I don't know, like with your one piece of your life, but it's in everything that you do. So from all the way from working with, working with urban kids in one department with urban ministry to meeting with community development in downtown Birmingham, there's just an insight and perspective and language that he understands with justice. That justice isn't just for a certain group of people, but he really seeks to find justice for all. And I've just been so fortunate with having Paulette and RG understanding that holistic relationship with justice. And my time with Community Church Without Walls has been challenging in a sense of really how do you participate in a church that is completely untraditional, in a community that anything is expected and you just go with the flow, and things that are unplanned, in moments that don't have structure to it, but at the same time you accept that this is church. And RG, Reverend Lyons, has just done a great job of connecting what I guess I've been learning in the classroom as a seminarian to the everyday, and he's also been able to challenge and push me of how you make the gospel translatable to every person, and not to just people in the margins, but people who may be wealthy, but in their hearts, in their minds, they're definitely in the margins, and that the level of poverty that you may experience in the inner city can be experienced in suburbia, and how you just, again, like the approach of justice, the approach of loving one another, it takes all of us. And that's what I've learned at Church Without Walls. It just takes every single part of who the church is. So it's been great, all in all. It's just been a really eye-opening experience to be in a different environment in the inner city of Birmingham. And Reverend Lyons just knows the city so well, not just where everything is physically, but the history of how things have come. And so being able to tie things historically and tie things systematically and then theologically, and then kind of create this puzzle that really fits to understand what justice looks like in the city. That's what Church Without Walls is. It's a continuous developing project of understanding like what justice looks like here. So yeah, it's been good stuff. Definitely. There's this book called Reconciling All Things by Emmanuel Kitongole, and he co-writes it with the theologian Chris Rice, and they have this phrase that the way things are not the way things should be. And it's great to look at Birmingham as a city and see that the way things are, what they used to be, it's like, the city was completely divided. And physically it is, because when my housing this summer has been in Avondale, and where I work is in West End, and so you have to cross several different train tracks. But not only that, but you see historically how the city has changed. And so every morning on my commute to the city, there has been some kind of eye-opening glimpse of the way things are, the way that they used to be. But then at the same time, you see the people like Wyatt Walker and other civil rights activists who decided that this is not the way that things should be. And so things have change. And so even in the midst of those injustices, like, you see the fruitfulness of relationships that have happened, that people that fought for civil rights, that people that, like Highlands United Methodist, that continues to fight for civil rights here in Birmingham, and that you see that the city is still a city of freedom fighters, that people who are seeking justice, and RG and people at Urban Ministry are still those people who are seeking justice. And so I think that is definitely something that I've taken away from this summer, and even to engage with some older voices of Birmingham who have lived here for 65 plus years, and to ask them what's the biggest change, and they'll adamantly say it's the race relations, but then I take away from that, like, actually it's the relationships that you have with your neighbors too. So to see that transformation, that people have changed in the aspect of the way things should be, that you need to be a community of people who do know your neighbor, not just know but love your neighbor, and I've encountered that, and it's been interesting too to see, what just happened?
Whoa. That was scary.
That was scary. But also to see how the church also resembles that as well, that people are pushing what, like, the way things are, the way things that are, of like what it looks like to really love people, and then adding to it the way that we should love people is this and this and this, and I've been taught the way that I should love people definitely at Church Without Walls. I think this summer, working with UMVIM and Truth Without Walls has been unique, because the one, I guess, goal that I wanted out of the summer was to understand the connectional system of the church. And a lot of people don't see the significance of the connectional system. And that was like just embedded into like my learning agreement, and a lot of different things, and just like understanding like why I came to Birmingham and why I work with UMVIM. And so it was unique to come to Global Young People's Convocation with already that desire to understand connectional systems, and then see the connectional systems at work. So already you have 104 delegates at the Legislative Assembly who came together to from all over the world, 30 different countries, when we all came together from local churches, and we were elected by first your local church annual conference, and then jurisdiction, and then Council of Bishops also put you before, and then with the agencies where we had UMCORD to GBGM and GBHEM and all these different GCOR and several different agencies that were present, that all came together to talk about legislation that in essence was presented by young people who were interested in being a part of changing what the church is today for what the church should be tomorrow. And so I think already having that desire, and then having that knowledge from UMVIM, and then even seeing the Church Without Walls on a local level made what I was doing at the Legislative Assembly so much more impactful, in the sense of the legislation that was proposed and that was put on the table would be sent to General Conference for the entire United Methodist Church to vote on and to approve, and it was also an experience to know that young people between the ages of 12 to 35 in the United Methodist Church, and young adults, whatever, cared so much about that issue, like really cared about the issues of the environment, of inclusivity, of what's going on in Israel-Palestine, of divestments, and of being a church who really speaks truth to power, who does walk the walk and actually talk the talk. And we weren't just kind of I guess, glossing over with God loves you, but we wanted to put that love into action. And we did that at Legislative Assembly, and it was an experience. And to even be able to come to the floor on one evening when our Legislative Assembly began, and going through the system, and even like having the opportunity to pray before the conference was a pretty impressive experience for me, because again, like to see how the entire church is connected, like how we are united globally and domestically too, to be one of the 15 delegates from the southeastern jurisdiction, and to be in a room where when I prayed, it was translated into 5 different languages, and to hear what grace and love and listening and hear sounded in Russian, Portuguese, and French and English finally. And so, and like you, and that experience you can't really, I don't know, you can't replicate that, but it's a one-time experience, but for me to have that opportunity was pretty unique. So yeah, I don't know. Gosh. As you were talking, I kind of went back to at the end of my semester, I finished planning probably, if I could say, like a life accomplishment, working with the Department of Homeland Security, Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, and Wesley Theological Seminary, that in participation with Wesley Theological Seminary, was definitely a life accomplishment of mine, to have the attention of all of the different actors sitting in a room talking about one of the deep injustices that gets at my heart, modern day slavery, was amazing. But one of my mentor, my friend, and the woman that kind of guided me through like planning that event at the end told me, like, Laura, you are a woman of social justice. And I said, psh, what? And I didn't really understand that. I didn't want to live into that, because I'm like, social justice is just one of those words you put on a t-shirt and you don't live out. And I don't want to be that person. Like, there's something about social justice that I just get, and not just the capacity of in theorizing or like, but I live it out. And when I came here this summer, I didn't understand how I was going to like unpack that label that was kind of given to me. But truly being with the justice theme at Young People Missions, to working with RG at Church Without Walls, to being on the streets of the Philippines and dealing with an issue of natural disaster, but also being in a developing country and witnessing a lot of difficult things that come with that. I understand what it means to be a person of social justice, to truly, yes, for justice, to be an issue of being able to love and practice that love in every environment that you are placed in, and have compassion for every person that you come across, whether they are a victim or they are a perpetrator. And so this summer, that's kind of what I take away. I'm just like, so this is what it means to be a person of social justice. This is how you live it out in your actions, in your words, in your deeds, in being critical and being constructive, and just being mindful of how the way that you live your life also becomes a statement to so many others. And so I've been really encouraged having my summer begin with those words from my mentor, and then kind of like end in my own self-reflection of, this is what it means to do justice. Kind of going into that Micah 6:8 verse, and also thinking of the beginning of my seminary, my second year in seminary. I came away with kind of thinking, okay, if justice is in the eyes of the beholder, just like some people would say beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, then what does justice look like for me? And to step into this internship and see justice in every way looking like loving people where they're at, loving people in the midst of their limitations, and loving people in the midst of their own transformation has been an amazing opportunity that I am truly thankful for, and cannot wait to start my last year in seminary with that in mind. Of looking people in the eye, walking with people, and saying that I'm going to love you first before anything else. So, yeah.
Awesome.
It's about love.